Hello, my name is Dr. Cara Green, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about the All Ireland Linguistics Olympiad. I'm going to tell you a little bit about the aims of the programme, and we'll get into the workshop content for a minute. But just a little bit about the history of AILO. I suppose AILO has been run by the Science Foundation Ireland Adapt Centre since 2009, and we've had over 30,000 students take part to date. Okay. So the aims of the programme are to introduce you to logic, linguistics and language technology, and with the aim of enhancing kind of key STEM problem solving skills, so many of which underpin what we do in the Adapt Centre around machine translation. Ideally, we want to encourage you to take science, technology, engineering, maths courses at university. And the actual aim of the workshop itself is to learn how to go about solving these problems in pairs or in groups of three. It's not a test. It's really about, how do we learn strategies for solving each type of puzzle. So that's what we're hoping to do in the workshop. So we have a new online AILO workshop model this year, obviously because of COVID-19, which is going to take kind of three parts. So the first part is the bit I'm doing now, which is the introductory presentation. So I'm going to take you through a bit of background and the timeline this year, the types of problems you'll come across in AILO, specific tips for the preliminary round, and I'm going to introduce you to three puzzles and ask you to have a go at these puzzles ahead of your visit with one of our tutors. So that's the second part. So we're arranging for a 1 hour Zoom tutor session with one of our AILO tutors from the Adapt Centre, or one of our former international students who was on the international team for the Linguistics Olympiad. So in this session, once you've tried the puzzles that I'm going to introduce today, we want to hear from you about how you tackled each puzzle, how you went about it. We could go through a run through of the puzzle solutions, and then there will be time for a kind of a question and answer session as well. So these Zoom sessions are done from one Adapt tutor to a class group with a teacher present in the classroom. Third part then is obviously we can't do workshops for all the schools. So and obviously schools can't travel into other schools at the moment, obviously with COVID. So what we're doing is we are going to record a workshop with this introduction and with the solution sets as well. So that'll be available to download for all schools. And we're going to run 2 or 3 evening sessions as well, where students can log on from home to a Zoom session and ask questions about puzzles and things like that as well. So we'll keep the teachers up to date on all of that information. Okay, so my own background is in secondary school. I really liked languages. I loved French, Irish. I liked physics as well, and computing was kind of all the rage at the time. So I was interested in doing something in computing. So I did a course in Dublin City University called the BSc in Computational Linguistics. And there's a similar course in Trinity now, CSL, I think it's called Computer Science and Languages. So I did my BSc in computational linguistics, which is like rule-based modeling of natural language, and it's kind of like AILO, but we're training the computer to translate between two natural languages, like between French and English, for example. So what you're doing is very much, gaining those skills for that kind of thing. After that, I did a PhD in computer-assisted language learning, which was working with secondary schools and integrating technology into the classroom. And now I work in outreach and public engagement, which is I get to do like interesting things like this around the workshops and work with young people and the general public all around getting involved in STEM and in language technologies and the various research areas that ADAPT is involved in, like artificial intelligence. So that's my role at the moment. Okay. So an overview of AILO, what we do between September and January is we send out monthly samples. We also have an AILO online site as well, where you can try you can try out puzzles. So the first round is going to be in your own school at the end of January, and it'll be 5 questions in 2.5 hours. And similar to last year, we have an online answer booklet again. So that means that you can get you'll have your 5 questions, you'll have your printed document, and you can work away on the solutions, but we're just asking you to submit the actual answers onto our online answer booklet. And I guess it's even more important this year with COVID and everything that we can do it online and get the answers across to us. So 100 qualify then for the national final in March. And again, with the plans at the moment, we think maybe the national final will be remote in schools this year. So 4 people qualify then for the International Linguistics Olympiad, and the IWEL committee have decided that there will be a linguistics Olympiad in Ventspils this year, and so it'll be up to kind of the Irish regulations whether we can go or not, I suppose. But there is trophies and prizes for junior, which is under 16, and senior, which is 16 and over categories for the national competition in Ireland. And we're going to make a big deal out of the national competition this year, our winners. So there'll be some good prizes this year for national winners. Okay, so the types of problems in round 1, you might get a writing system one. So for example, like Inuit. So writing system is any conventional method of visually representing verbal communication. So if you've ever seen an Ohm's drone, you might see the writing was from the bottom to the top. You'll see I've written there that not always left to right or even top to bottom. So be really careful when you get a writing system. And one of our questions today is a writing system. So just keep that in mind. Another type of puzzle is morphology, or the study of the structure of words, how they're put together. Morphophonemics is the interaction between this morphology and phonological or phonetic processes, or how things sound. And then syntax, the set of rules that govern the structure of a sentence. We get a lot of syntax questions in round 1 in AILO 2. Okay, so tips for the preliminary round then. So write down everything you notice about the new language structure in a systematic way. We don't want you to recap kind of the steps you took in finding the answer, but it's about kind of what you found out about the language. The fine details matter, and look for patterns. Look for clues in the title and the description. I can't stress this enough. There are clues in the blurb, that we provide. There are clues in the titles we provide. Pay attention to them and read them really carefully. And just the final thing is to build on what you already know and kind of try to do things in a systematic way. We'll talk about actually in the solutions about how to use tables and things like that. Okay, so one thing we wanted to highlight ahead of the different topics, the different puzzles we're going through today, is around noun classes, because it's something that obviously we use a lot and we talk about a lot in AILO. So if you have done sort of French or German, we would just give an example of a noun class. So, but generally, a noun may belong to a particular class based on the characteristic features of the thing it refers to, such as gender or meaning. But basically, there's some sort of grammatical behavior that these nouns have in common, these words have in common. But it might be meaning, and it might have meaning in common or might not. So in French, for example, you've got le garçon, just the boy, and la fille is the girl, and it's pretty. We've got masculine, feminine there. It's straightforward. If we look at German, you've got der Mann is the man, and der Vogel is the bird. In German, you have to kind of learn around which class things are in, and that you then which one they're in based on der, die, das, or die, which one they're in, and you just have to you have to memorize you memorize that kind of when you learn the word. So it's something to kind of keep in mind, that not I know in other AILO puzzles a lot of the time we talk about it might be very obviously a particular noun belongs in a particular class because of the meaning, but that's not always the case. So the first puzzle we're asking you to look at in advance of the session with the tutor is Norwegian, and the title, which we want to pay very close attention to, is the Norwegian problem, a Norwegian problem, Norwegian problem / the Norwegian problems. So I don't know why have we done that. Okay, maybe think about that. So it's a Norwegian is a Germanic language, and it's spoken by over 5 million people, and it's the official language of Norway. The author is Babette Newsom, and there's lots of cool Babette Newsom puzzles out there that you might have come across again, or you can search for. And so just to remember what we said about noun classes as well, and obviously read the title and blurb very carefully. Okay. So in this puzzle, what we're asking you to do is, on the left, you're given 10 sentences of Norwegian, and on the right, you're given 10 sentences of English, but they're not matched up. So you have to try to match these up or unjumble them. That is the first task that the puzzle asks you to do. So I'm going to come back and give you some hints how to get started in a moment. The second part of the question is where it actually tells you that there are 3 classes. So you've got common, feminine, or neuter, and that the class actually determines how the noun can be used with words such as the, a, or an, which are we'll call determiners, or how the word can be made plural. So the nouns you've been given so far in the sentences in the previous slide are all regular, as are the ones below, and they actually tell you that you've got these 3 nouns, kvina, bil, and epil, and it actually tells you which class they belong to. So I've just highlighted kvina, bil, and epil there because once they kind of give you some more information, it's just worth finding them in the previous sentences that we were given. So just to find them and see, can you work out what they mean? The next part, they give you 3 more Norwegian nouns, and they tell you which class they are, and they actually give you the English translation as well. So they give you jente, which is girl, hund, which is dog, and hotel, which is hotel. And then you're asked to translate the following into Norwegian from English. And the last part of it is you're given 3 more words, and you're given the English translation, but you're not given any information about which class they belong to. So you're trying to work out maybe which class they belong to, and you're also given some Norwegian, and you have to translate from Norwegian back to English. So you are actually given some more information about those words in the translations there. Okay, so that's the task for this particular question. Okay, so how would we actually get started on a puzzle like this? So what I've done is I have just given you one hint, and I won't give you any more hints, but this is the one. So when you start something like this, the way I would do it is I usually look at the English side first, and I might count how many times something repeats. So if you look at cars, you've got cars. In D, in E, you've got the car. In G, you've got the cars, and in J, you've got a car. And then I look at the other side and say, does anything repeat as many times? Is probably my first rule, is counting. My next one might be, okay, in what position are they? Are they in kind of a similar position as the others? So if you can look at that, if you look at the position of where the things are. So you've got ein bil, bilen, biller, and bilena. And if you use this method of continuing through, this is the best way to attack this puzzle. So at this point, for this particular puzzle, we'd invite everyone to try this puzzle for at least 20 minutes, maybe 25 minutes, and have a good go at it. And then we can come back to the solution and discussion around it when you have your live tutor session. If you're watching this and you don't have a live tutor session, there'll be a kind of a following video which deals with the solutions. So the second puzzle for the workshops is Phoenician Fun, and this was by Professor Harold Summers, who's involved in AILO, obviously. So the Phoenicians have a special place in the history of linguistics, since their language was one of the first to be written in a phonetic script, unlike any other contemporary writing systems which were pictorial. So the Phoenician script can be dated at around 1050 BC, and from it the Arabic, Hebrew, and by extension Greek, Roman, and Cyrillic scripts evolved. And then I said, remember to read the blurb very carefully, or the title. So whichever one has more information, really. So in this case, read the blurb really carefully and think about what it's saying. Okay, so the task in this puzzle is to match up the Phoenician names with the names on the map. Okay, so on the map there you have Chalab, Ebla, Anuch, Kadesh, Ribla, Beretos, and is it Sarfath? And then you have the Phoenician names on the left. So I'm going to give you one hint of basically how we started, similar to the last one. It's look at what you're given on the right there, and see if you can see any pattern repeating itself a number of times. and then look at the others and see, do you see anything repeating itself a number of times, and then try to kind of write that down systematically out into a table. Okay. So your one hint is you can start here, for example, where I've highlighted in ebla and in rebla, you've got BL, BL, and then a repeated pattern on the left. So if you could start there, that's a good way to do this puzzle. And again, do spend 20 to 25 minutes on this puzzle before you have your session with the with your tutor, or before you go on to the solution video. Do have a go at it first. So the third puzzle and final puzzle is Swahili, again by Professor Harold Summers. So Swahili is a Bantu language spoken by various ethnic groups that inhabit large areas of Eastern Africa. So although only 5 to 10 million people speak it as their native language, Swahili is also a lingua franca from which the region is a national or official language of 4 nations, and is the only language of African origin among the official working languages of the African Union. So the task here is to study the following sentences with their translations and then translate the sentences given. Again, a very typical AILO problem. So Swahili does not have any words for the or a. So it tells you that, okay? So definitely note that down. So this is what you're given. You're given your Swahili on the left, and you're given some English on the right. Yeah, you're given your direct translations in this one. So again, how would we get started on this? And no surprise, the way I would start this again is to look at the English side, and I would look at things that repeat themselves. That they repeat themselves. Okay, so the task then is you're given some English sentences and you have to translate them into Swahili. And there is one final task: is if the Swahili word for prince is Mkuu, what do you think the word for princess is and why? Okay, so how would we get started? So look for repeated patterns, as I said, and note it down in a systematic way in a table. Okay, so the one hint I'm giving you is here on the right. You can see that you've got child, children. So I've highlighted those, children in red and child in blue. And then again on the other side, seeing what word repeats itself. So you see watoto is repeated twice for children, and in child you've got mtoto. So maybe toto is something to look at, and what goes with it in each case. So that's the introduction to Swahili. Okay, so what we're asking you to do again is try to spend 20-25 minutes on Swahili ahead of the tutor session. And again, if you don't have a tutor session, do try the puzzles out ahead before you go on to the solution discussion. It's very important to try and have a go with these. If any particular questions about the puzzles, you can email ailo@adaptcentre.ie, and we'll be happy to get back to you about with answers to your questions. Okay, thanks very much.